We've finally gotten a teaser for Dune Part 3, and we've been blessed with nearly 2.5 minutes of footage, more than I honestly expected. The teaser raises questions, answers others, and leaves you with that very specific feeling that only Dune can evoke, the sense that something inevitable is bearing down on you. Before we begin, if you don't plan on reading Dune Messiah before seeing the movie, you really shouldn't let yourself get spoiled. Not by other videos, not by Reddit, not by well-meaning friends. The plot is simply too good, too unexpected, too emotional. It deserves to be experienced for the first time in the theater. And this plot simply cannot do without a certain group in the Dune universe, the Bene Gesserit. And even though we've barely seen them, the teaser gave me the feeling that I was back in the theater watching the first Dune movie. The tension that you can still feel even as an outsider, the intrigues being spun in the shadows, no intrigue, no conspiracy can do without the Bene Gesserit, and it would be fatal to believe they wouldn't play a role in Part 3. For those less familiar with them, the Bene Gesserit are an ancient order of women whose influence has spanned millennia through the deliberate manipulation of ruling houses, genes, and even religions. They are not warriors in the classical sense. Their weapon is control itself, over others, over language, over the body and the mind. They weave intrigues over time spans that span generations. In the teaser, we barely see the Bene Gesserit, and yet, while watching, I had the feeling that I was back in the theater watching the first Dune movie. That tension you can feel, even though you yourself are not involved. That sense that there is something else behind every gesture, every sentence, every scene. That is the Bene Gesserit. You don't have to see them to feel them. And it would be a mistake to think they won't play a role in Part 3, because right in the middle of the teaser, in a brief exchange between mother and son, there's so much of the Bene Gesserit that I now have to talk about it. Visually, the teaser stays true to the visual style Denis Villeneuve has established for the series. We see Arrakis, the desert, the power, and we see Paul Atreides in a role he didn't choose for himself and from which he can't escape. While watching the teaser, however, something struck me. Even though this video won't contain any spoilers, we need to talk about that line from Lady Jessica and how it fits into the whole story surrounding Paul. Your father never started a war. That's her response to Paul when he asks her how Leto Atreides protected his family from their enemies. And oh boy, here we go again. I've already made a separate video about Lady Jessica because she's my favorite character in the Dune universe. Not because she's flawless, quite the opposite, but because her flaws are so human, so relatable, and at the same time so devastating. And yet, the Bene Gesserit always give the impression that they are flawless. They have, so to speak, overcome their humanity in order to protect humanity from itself. Yet their noble goal is marked by self-interest, control, and selfishness. Dune doesn't present us with a simple good versus evil. No black and white portrayal. Instead, a palette of shades of grey where the shade appears lighter or darker depending on the perspective. And Lady Jessica moves somewhere within this grey area. Her greatest mistake is also the elephant in the room that set the entire Dune story in motion. She defied the Bene Gesserit's orders and gave birth to a son for Leto Atreides instead of a daughter, out of love. Or out of the belief that Paul could be the long-awaited goal of the Bene Gesserit reading program, the Kwisatz Haderach, probably both, and it is precisely this decision, this single act born of both love and ambition, that has plunged the known universe into the chaos we are about to witness in Part 3. Attentive viewers among you may have noticed that the teaser only features the character speaking we can consider the closest member of the Atreides family, Chani, Paul, and Jessica, because Dune Part 3 will, above all, be a grand family drama in which every character must grapple with their trauma over the loss of Leto and the consequences that follow. Back to that line, "Your father never started a war." What does that line do in this moment? Even in Dune Part 2, Lady Jessica tries to convince Paul that his father never believed in revenge, and shortly afterward urges him to take on the role of the Lisan al-Gaib, the prophesied leader of the Fremen. She uses Leto's legacy as a moral compass, as an ideal, as a standard. And now, when Paul has already started a war, when millions have died in his name, she tells him, "Your father would never have done that." This isn't well-meaning motherly advice. It's manipulation, so obvious that it becomes toxic. It's so obvious how much Paul tries to measure himself against his father. Leto Atreides was the epitome of a just leader, charismatic, strong, loved by his people, and yet destroyed by his enemies because he didn't have enough time to ally himself with the Fremen. Paul carries this image with him as if it were a judgment on everything he himself has become. And then his own mother stands before him and confirms it. Yes, your father would have done it differently. Paul is already struggling with his own power and his destiny. He must walk a path that will cause so much suffering throughout the universe, and that too can and must be criticized. But then to have to hear from an important person in Paul's isolated existence just how flawed he himself is, that I cannot and will not defend. And I don't believe Villeneuve wants to defend it either. This moment in the teaser is not a sign of weakness in the script. It is a sign that the film has understood what Dune Messiah is really about. Dune Part 3 is likely to be the most stirring and powerful chapter in the series, not because of the battles, not because of the special effects, but because we are witnessing a galactic epic that couldn't be more human at its core. A family torn apart by loss, guilt, love, and power. A mother who could push her son to the edge of the abyss with a single sentence. And a universe paying the price for a decision once made out of love.